Plenty to talk about, Beaver, including the Saints and Max King. And the Bombers are first on the agenda with this man. Lloydie, welcome to you. You've been everywhere today, but thanks for saving a bit of oxygen for us.
Thanks, Gerard. Beaver, yeah, it's been a frustrating time. I've been frustrated for years, and I suppose over the last number of years, you might change a head of footy.
Yep.
You might change a coach, an assistant coach, but nothing ever really changes, and you feel like guys have just protected their own patches of turf because of their appointments or whatever. But now I think this is the first time that you think, okay, things could seriously change for the better with David Barham coming in and taking over as the president. I think obviously you make decisions and you want those decisions to work as a footy. I think Paul Brasher has wanted nothing but the best for the football club. Sure. Yeah, he's a good person, but what's going on at the moment hasn't worked. What we saw yesterday in a 7-win season, but just to see them pretty much lifeless, spiritless, looked like a performance of a coach that is about to probably go as well. So now it needs to look at the president. I think the CEO needs to be looked at, the head of footy and the coach. The 4 key pillars of your football club need to be seriously looked at now as part of this external review.
Do you think Ben Rutten will survive this?
I don't think he will, Gerard, no. And my opinion is that on what I saw and what I've seen across this year, that I wouldn't go with Ben Rutten next year.
So Alastair Clarkson is sitting in the wings, and he has been for a long period of time. The internal review, if that's what you can call it, and there's been plenty of questions about the veracity of that review, even if there was a review, basically said that he was still the man and he was going to be empowered to go on next year. Do you think that Alastair Clarkson is still available, that he will end up being the coach of the Bombers? Is he the man you would go after?
Well, I think he's the best candidate out there. He's the best candidate out there. And I did say 2 months ago, why aren't Essendon in this race? Because there's a man by the name of Alastair Clarkson. So I said it a couple of months ago. I think that Alastair is quite a confronting person because he'll come in and he will just...
Tornado?
There could be a tornado, but to me, that is what this football club needs, because they've made little minor adjustments, but really at the end of the day, it doesn't get the club anywhere.
Is the board still split?
Well, Gerard, I'm going to be careful because you do hear bits and pieces. But, yeah, I think there's been, throughout the year, some who say, give Ben time.
Yep.
Give Ben, this is just based purely on the coach, and others who say, enough's enough. We can't afford to waste another year next year. And this decision needs to be made. And that's where I admire David Barham, because I think he's pushed and pushed and pushed. Now he's become the president. And I think he's one of those ones that's pushing for change and the external review, Beaver.
That last comment's really interesting. He's had 44 games in charge. If you don't count 2020 when he was match day coach with the handover, the anointed one with John Worsfold finishing up. So he's got a win-loss record of 18 and 26, which includes an elimination final, which is almost staggering to believe when you think about the way that this year has unfolded. So 44 games in charge, bang, gone.
It's ruthless, isn't it? And I know how the way
it's that type of industry.
Yeah, it is that type of industry, and I think that the players who some will say, well, they need to toughen up and let's put on the players, but the players to me are voting with their feet with the way they've performed this year. And there was a rise for a period of time, but I think they've just played footy. And the last 2 weeks, the Giants have sorted them out. They went after some players, shut down the run of Hind and Redmond and Merritt. What did Essendon have to fall back on? Not much. And then the weekend was just a capitulation.
Can I ask you about the list itself and what our expectations should be? Finals last year, I know a much easier draw given where they finished. Tougher draw this year. But I've seen them play some really good football at times, beaten some good sides. How do you rate the list? Let's just say Alastair Clarkson took over that list tomorrow and no one was added. Where would you what would your expectations be for a finish next year?
Would be, I think, another extra 4 or 5 wins.
Yeah, that gets you in the 8.
Yeah, around the 8 and potentially more with a new coach, with what Craig McRae's gone from 17th to 2nd.
Yep.
I think another year into Harrison Jones. I think there's enough there to play finals.
There's actually been a lot of talent added to that group. I mean, last year the kids were unbelievably good. This year a couple have dropped off. Some like Cox haven't really played much. But you've got a potential rising star winner. Hobbs has also been added to the list. I mean, I look at that list and I think, gee, there's some talent there.
Yeah, Perkins is another one. Reed. The list goes on now. Redmond and Hind have played their best football. Peter Wright's had his best season. But collectively as a group, it just hasn't transformed into good footy.
They've had 14 players play between 18 and 21 games this year. So the list has been, or the team has been pretty stable week in, week out. There hasn't been a lot of guys that have been affected. As you said, Nick Cox has played just the 5 games, Langford only the 9, Jones the 10, Stringer 14, Parrish 15. But so it's not as if they've been just completely ruined or cruelled by injury, is it?
And the other aspect I'll say is they lack leadership, in my opinion. So you look at Heppel's the captain. He's been a Warrior for a long time, but you'd say who comes next? So Merritt, you've got Darcy Parrish, you've got Andrew McGrath. All have had solid years, but they don't jump out at you like they're going to lead the way and be a strong captain either. So I think the leadership of the players is a concern for the club, and that has to be addressed as well.
Can I take you back before we take some calls, Lloydie, to Max King and where you sit on him and a relationship with him and whether or not you'd like to be involved?
Gerard, a bit frustrating today because, there's comments were made around, does Max even want to work with Matthew Lloyd? I've never ever put my hand up to ask to work with Max. He's with St Kilda. He's with the St Kilda Footy Club. But what happened last year was he kicked against Geelong on a Friday night, wasn't it, Beaver? He might have kicked
1 goal 6.
1 goal 6, and he was really hurting. Before he'd even left the change rooms, he'd text me saying, "Could we do something?" And when any Haileybury footballer asked me to do something once they've left, of course I would go have a session with him. I said, make sure you ask the club so we don't get any injuries. They said no. That's been the extent of it. And obviously I spoke about his technique, and maybe he does need a different voice. He needs somebody else outside of St Kilda who can help him, because he seems like he hasn't improved as much as he would have liked. So it's not me, because, Gerard, I'm a media commentator.
You are, yeah.
And the moment I worked with Danaher, suddenly everyone thought I was on the once you're on the books of the Essendon Footy Club, you're seen as a spokesman. What's going on with the coaching? Should James Hurd survive? That's what happened to me that year. So, so I make comments on his kicking, but I'm not somebody looking to seek to work with him. Who he needs someone permanently with him for a 6-month period.
I reckon a key paragraph in the long statement released by Essendon late this afternoon, the quote attributed to the new president, Dave Barham, and all three of us know Dave very well. The view of the board is that we cannot continue to only review ourselves and hope that things will change. Whilst the review was thorough and well done, he's talking about the internal review, the board has determined that our club needs further external aspects added into our analysis.
So on that point, Beaver, my understanding would be that Josh Marnie has done a lot of the interview process, and that's
Was he meant to do that in the internal review? I thought it was going to be Sean Wellman and Simon Madden and Kevin Sheedy.
My understanding is that Josh has been heavily involved, and they're saying, how can we review ourselves? We're reviewing ourselves here in a team that's won 7 games for the season, and we need. And that's why I'm really pleased with what Dave Barham's doing, because don't review yourself.
So they're clearly not happy with whatever has been. Like that report, I think, was tabled a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
And it's still blow. Do you think this would have happened irrespective of yesterday's performance?
Well, I also heard that there was a meeting before the game. Okay. So it was, I think, and this probably expedited it, if that's the right term, after the performance.